found new friends.
That's what friends are for.
You say he just a friend, but you say he just a friend. You got a friend in me.
I'll be there for you.
Thank you for being a friend.
Friends. How many of us have them? Friends.
And Joe Clark is brought into East Side High because East Side, they got a few problems. They got major issues. And Dr. Napier is a friend of Joe Clark. He's the one who assigns Joe Clark to this school. And so my favorite scene in the movie is when Joe and Dr. Napier are in a courtroom together. I think we got a photo of it. Do we have a photo of it? Yes. Well, this is in the courtroom, but this is one of the scenes where they were going back and forth. So they're going back and forth with one another in this scene, and Dr. Napier feels like Joe's methods are alienating people. He's just doing the most, and they're yelling, they're going back and forth at each other, and they're both making valid points. But here's what I love: at the end of them going back and forth, Dr. Napier slams his briefcase down and said, I demand you do what I say you do, and you're going to go in there and you're going to apologize. Now let's go get something to eat. And I'm like, I love this. Now, this seems toxic. It seems disrespectful. At a minimum, it seems very uncomfortable. But if we're honest, we want friends in our lives who will tell us the truth. We want friends in our lives who will be there for us unconditionally. The problem for us is, I don't think, like Houdini was saying in their song, we really understand what that means. Or we don't have the proper understanding of the foundation of friendship, which is love. Some of us, we love having the Teds in our lives that give us the warm and fuzzies and support us and celebrate us. And some of us would love to have the Dr. Napiers in our lives that will push us to be better and see more in us. But that requires us to understand that love is more than a feeling. And that's the foundation of what it means to be a friend, whether it's a close friend or someone that you're being friendly to for the first time. The foundation is love, and it's more than a feeling. But we live in a world where Dr. Eric Mason says, feelings sit on the thrones of our hearts, meaning that we will gravitate toward what feels like support or what feels like or seems like agreement for us. And so then we surround and we insulate ourselves with agreement, not love. And deep down, we think our real friends are the people who agree with us, the people who see everything like us. This is part of the reason why, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but I think it's important for us. This is part of the reason why we're seeing the polarization in our world right now. This is a part of the reason why we're seeing politics just become so toxic, because everybody feels like, oh, you just have to agree on every issue to be down with me or to be my friend. And if you disagree, well, you ain't with me. You're not rocking with me. What I want to zoom in on today is just one scripture that I think challenges all of this for us. And certainly the life of Jesus challenges how we live and how we love, particularly those who are maybe not like us. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. There are several of the Proverbs that talk to us about what it means to be friends. And today I just got one verse, Proverbs 17:17. Here we go. It says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother or sister is born for a difficult time. Simple subject to kick off this new series about friends is this: what everyone wants in a friend. Some of us need to write this down and take notes, copious notes. what everyone wants in a friend. I think this one sentence description in Proverbs 17:17 sums up exactly what it means to be a friend. And we're going to break this down a little bit. But there's one word in the sentence that we read that I think is the key to everything. And it's depending on our definition and understanding of that word that shapes how we understand what it means to be a friend, and that is love. And so all I want to do is I want to unpack that word and how it relates to friendship. And there's three things a loving friend does at all times. Here we go. Number one is care. A loving friend cares. This is the baseline. Like there's no way for us to be a friend without caring. You simply have to consider someone other than yourself. We don't love people who always think about themselves, who are not thinking about other people. Those are not people that we want to rock with when we think about what it means to be a friend. There's a guy by the name of Jared who's on the management team of this church. The management team is like the governing body that helps me to lead our church. And there's a guy named Jared who I love because, and I just sent our management team an email this week just thanking them so much for their support. But I specifically said to Jared, thank you for just sending me text messages, bro, and asking me how I'm doing. For just thinking about me for no reason and asking me how my wife is doing and how my kids are doing, or just sending me a gift card and saying, "Hey, man, I'm just thinking of you, man. Go get a meal on me." I'm like, Jared, man, you can never leave this management team, bro. Like, you can never leave this management team. Like, I appreciate that so much. Care is significant to what it means to be a friend at all times, not just when it's convenient for us. And I think that we've confused care for this thing called quid pro quo, meaning, hey, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Hey, I'll do this little thing over here for you, you do this thing. No. That's conditional. That's not what we're talking about. And I think that we enter these relationships sometimes because we really care about how we can benefit, or we really care about what we can get from it, right? Now, there's a particular person who lives in my house. I won't say the name, but they are in love with Target. I'm not going to say any names. I'm not even going to look in that direction. But it's very much a transactional relationship. Like, love the sales and the deals and it's just great to be in Target. It's completely a transactional relationship. Now, does this person really care about Target that much? Like the people per se, or like the brand, or not that, this is my wife. It's my wife. I should probably stop before I get in trouble. But the point is, here's the point. The point is, I think we treat a lot of people like Target. I think we treat a lot of people in our lives thinking about like how we can benefit from, and it's purely a beneficial kind of thing for us. It's not an unconditional thing for us. We want friends who care even when it costs them. We want friends to care even when it's a sacrifice to them. I was just reading this story. Y'all, I love the Olympics, and I'm watching the Olympics, and I'm loving the competition and all the things, all the stories. And speaking of track and field, this particular story that I'm about to share with you didn't happen in the Olympics, but it shows us like the power of sportsmanship. So these two young men in the state of Utah were running a cross-country track and field championship. And these two teammates were running. And there was one guy who was in front of the other teammate, but he heard his teammate with only 200 meters to go to finish the race. He heard his teammate yell. And so he turns around and sees that his teammate has broken his leg. So he turns around and he decides that he wants his teammate to finish this race. So he picks up his teammate and puts him on his back and runs with him for the final 200 meters of the race. And here's the thing, like, it really didn't matter, I mean, in terms of where they finished in the race, because they were disqualified, because according to the rules, if you touch another runner, you're disqualified. So he could have easily just finished the race and then went back to go get his friend, but he decided that, hey, I'm going to stop what I'm doing right now and go help my teammate. I'm going to care enough about him to sacrifice my finish in this race and be disqualified. That's what it means to care deeply. These are the moments that inspire us. When someone just cares for you and they don't have to, that compels us. And this is what it means to be a brother and a sister in a difficult time. So number one, a loving friend cares. The second thing a loving friend does is confront us. Now, this is where it gets a little bit comfortable. We'll take all the care we can get. But then this is when it starts to get a little bit tight for us, when people confront us. But we all know that sometimes some stuff just needs to be addressed. And if we're honest, sometimes we need to be addressed. Like, we really need somebody to tell us about ourselves. But here's where the problem lies for us. It's how we think about confrontation. I just want to give you the definition for confront just so that we're all on the same page. And this is what it means. It just means to meet face to face. That's not positive. That's not negative. It's neutral. But the way that we experience confrontation a lot of times, or the way that we define it in our lives, is negative. So we try to avoid it, and we don't like it. But it literally just means to meet face to face. But here's the thing. When confrontation is done in a healthy way, it's a gift to us. It is a gift to us. One of my favorite business books is a book called Radical Candor. And this book is all about this kind of confrontation and how necessary it is for us. And it's written by a woman named Kim Scott. And Kim tells this story about how she was doing this presentation kind of early on in her career. And she's worked for like Facebook and Google and all these different places. So she's been a tech executive. And so Kim Scott, she had done this presentation. It was a pretty big presentation, and she thought she killed it, y'all. Y'all know how we feel like when we feel like we really killed something. And so she's walking down the hall, and her boss is walking with her, and somehow they kind of get into this conversation about how the presentation went. And Kim wasn't expecting her boss to say, "You sounded unintelligent. And you use too many fillers, uhs, and ums that make you look less intelligent than you actually are." And Kim was so caught off guard, and she didn't know whether to be offended or hurt or all of the above. But when she came to her senses, she realized that this was a boss that cared enough about her to say, "You are living beneath your potential. This is beneath you." And you know what? There's a little verse in Proverbs that speaks directly to this. Proverbs 27:5-6 says, "Better an open reprimand than concealed love. The wounds of a friend are trustworthy, but the kisses of an enemy are excessive." We want our friends, or should want our friends, to love us enough to confront us, who have, listen to this, and some of us need to write this down, who have courage, consideration, and compassion. All of those things. So it's not just, I'm going to just tell you how I feel. No, it's not that. It's courage, consideration, and compassion. How it's presented. Otherwise, we do this thing that Kim Scott says in her book. We do this thing called ruinous empathy. And what that means is that we're just telling people what they want to hear or what's easy for us to say, and we're not helping them. It's actually ruining them. And here's the reality. We don't grow without tension or discomfort or even pain in our lives. And change cannot happen without confrontation. But we must be the kinds of friends who love enough to confront with the truth. So number one, a loving friend confronts. Number two, a loving friend cares. And number two, a loving friend confronts. And then number three, a loving friend challenges. Now this sounds very familiar or related to confront, but it's a little bit different, because it's one thing to just call out something. It's another thing to actually push someone. Some of you are aware of kind of my athletic background. I grew up my whole life playing sports. And so I love coaching. I'm a coach right now. I do some leadership development coaching, and I enjoy doing that. I love being coached. I have a couple of coaches. And as a matter of fact, I determine how much you love me and how deep your love is for me by how willing you are to confront me, how willing you are to challenge me and call me out. And I don't have anyone who I consider to be a close friend. So if I introduce someone to you and say, hey, this is one of my closest friends, just know that person has license to call me out, because I've given them that license. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't always feel good. Nobody likes to be, sometimes challenged in the way that we need to be challenged. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but we need people who will see us, who will hear us, and who will push us. In Exodus chapter 18, one of the central figures of the entire Bible, Moses. There's this little story where Moses, he hasn't gone on and like become Moses yet. Like, he's just kind of doing his thing, and he's got married, and he's got this father-in-law named Jethro. And Jethro is seeing how God is working in Moses' life. And he's praising him. He's celebrating him, like, son, like, this is great stuff. But then a couple of days go by, and Jethro sees that Moses is doing the most. And this is how Moses is doing the most. He's got all of these people who are standing in line to talk to him and help them resolve their disputes. So he's like the judge. So he got to basically sit in front of all these people, hear what they got to say, and then tell them what the decision is going to be. Jethro's like, yo, bro, like, that's not good. You are going to burn yourself out. Why are you doing this? And Moses is like, because they need me to do it. He's like, no, they don't. What you need to do is get other people to help you multiply and divide the work so that you can serve these people better. You're not only not serving them, you're hurting yourself. Jethro challenges Moses' leadership. We need these kind of relationships in our lives. Proverbs 27:17, I love this, says, iron sharpens iron, and one person sharpens another. You know what's interesting about that is we like the finished product of what that looks like, but not the process. Evan, I think we got a photo of that. Yes, you see that picture? Like, that's what iron sharpening iron looks like. Nothing about that seems like it's going to be warm and fuzzy. That's a very hard and a serious process. We like the end product of it, but we don't like the process. But that's how the end product becomes the end product. It's the processing. And we love telling people, trust the process, until we're in the process. So if we're going to the echo trust the process, then we have to live that and understand the importance of that in our own lives. Let me see if I can land the plane like this. I've got a good friend. His name is Mark, and some of you may remember Mark. He came in and spoke to us last year on our first anniversary, and he's a amazing big brother of mine. He's a best-selling author. I don't know how many books he's written to this point, 17, 18, I don't know. I've lost count. Amazing, humble guy. And he's pastored for over 25 years, and we got to work together for almost a decade. We've known each other longer than that. And I remember Mark saying to me, hey, Joshua, listen, we need to put you on the teaching team of this church. Like, we need to hear your voice. You need to be a part of this teaching team. And I wasn't really so sure at the time, but I trusted Mark. And so I jump on the teaching team, and, you know, I'm beginning, you know, to do my thing. And I had a moment, y'all. I had a moment like Kim Scott, where I'm like, all right, you know, I'm kind of feeling this. This okay. I think I might be all right at this. And so I show up at the staff meeting one day, and I remember coming in the side door and coming down, and Mark, you know, he pulled me to the side, and he said, hey, listen, I need to tell you something. He said, you're too good of a communicator to not be better at what you're doing. Man, that was sharp. And what was so interesting about Mark telling me this is, like, Mark is the least confrontational guy you will ever meet. Like, he's the nice, like, smile, hug, like, and so it kind of caught me off guard. But what Mark was telling me is that, hey, like, you on this level with me now. You got to step your game up. I wasn't offended by that. I wasn't hurt by that. I knew what that meant, that I needed to be better. And Mark had enough care for me to push me to develop. He confronted me. It wasn't anything bad, but he was pointing out a negative pattern. And then he challenged me to be better and called me to a higher standard. Here's the thing I want to make sure that I acknowledge. None of that feels comfortable for, well, maybe the care, you know, we're like, we down, we need a hug, you know, we need somebody. Yeah, but the other 2/3 of it, that's why our friendships and our relationships are not where they need to be now, because we just want people to hug us and high five us and celebrate us. But what about confronting us and challenging us? One of my favorite business authors, a guy by the name of Jim Collins, he wrote a book called Good to Great. You know what Jim Collins says? He says that we need to learn how to confront the brutal facts, but not lose hope. Those are the kind of friends that we need to not only have, but be. And guess what? Jesus models this for us. Picks 12 guys that nobody else would pick, walks with them for 3 years, and listen, he knows they're going to misinterpret him. He knows they're just not going to get it. He knows they're going to consistently miss the mark. He knows that they're even going to disown him when it gets tough. He had more to lose than they did. And he gave his life. And you know what he said in John 15 and 13? He says, there is no greater love than when one lays down his life for his friend. This is not necessarily about us giving our physical life, but when we sacrifice for the people around us, that's laying down our life, laying down our agenda, laying down our feelings, laying down like what's convenient for us, laying that down for our friends. We put ourselves to the side to love others, even when we are inconvenienced. And I don't know if you know this, the whole reason that we're here today, 2,000 plus years later, do you know what this is about, what we're doing? Do you know what's happening around the country and the world when people gather? Like, do you know what this is? This is a friends movement. That's what this is. This is a friends movement because Jesus said, listen, you are my friends. And I lay down my life for my friends. And you know what the friends movement should be doing in our cities, in our communities, in our neighborhoods? It should cause people to say, like, wow, man, those Jesus people, man, they're the most loving and the most sacrificial and the most friendly people. And that should be the case because this is a friends movement. Because this is what Jesus did and this is what Jesus modeled for us. So, in the words of Houdini, let's be friends. The ones that we can depend on. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for just this opportunity that you've given to us today to be reminded of what it means to be a friend and to have the example that we have in Jesus. It's like the song says, there's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. Lord, let our lives be a reflection of the kind of love that Jesus displayed for us, his friends. And it was truly unconditional because Jesus loved us before we loved him. And so let that be the case for us, that we would love our neighbors like ourselves, that we would love unconditionally, that we would give and we would sacrifice unconditionally. And that when we fall as a friend or when we make a mistake as a friend, that we would own it, that we would apologize, that we would ask for forgiveness, that we would be quick to repair whatever is broken.